Hey guys, welcome back to Moonmen TCG. Today we're going to be looking at Game 2 in the match of Kaido versus Kid from last week's Moonmen TCG tournament. Let's dive right into it. So I'm going second this game, and my opening hand consists of Brachio Bomber, Onigashima, Kurozumi Higurashi, Uta, and the 7-drop King. Going second against Kid, this is about as good of an opening hand as I could ask for. It means that turn 1 at 2 Dawn, I'm going to be playing Higurashi. Turn 2 at 4 Dawn, I'm going to play Onigashima. And that will get me to 7 active Dawn at turn 3 so that I can play this 7-drop King, which is really good into green. As you can see here, my opponent begins things off by playing down a Jewelry Bonnie and passing to me. Immediately afterwards, I top deck 6-drop King, which is a good card to have if I need it, and as expected, I play my Higurashi as a turn 2 blocker. Much to my surprise, my opponent actually decides to play an Izo here and tap down the blocker, try and get some control over the game. He swings into it with his leader before passing to me, trying to basically, as opposed to giving more cards in hand, establish a better board presence early on, give himself more control over the speed of the game. I end up drawing a Queen here, so I'm going to start by attaching one and swinging leader, as I don't need that one extra Dawn. And my opponent does end up taking this without getting any triggers off. Afterwards, I play Onigashima and pass to him. My opponent's first action on his turn is to play 5-drop Law. This is actually really good for him because it lets him bounce that Izo that he used for a good tempo play, so he's getting a 2k counter back into hand, and now he's cheated out a Raizo, and with Raizo and Bonnie on board, he's got a lot of potential for card draw in the future. Then he swings at me, dealing me 1 damage, and I end up getting a Who's Who. I decide not to trigger the Who's Who here, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I know for a fact that this turn I want to be playing this 7-drop King, and playing the Who's Who preemptively gets rid of one of my potential targets. I'd rather save it for a more crucial moment in the game when there's something else I really need to get rid of. And I really think that it shows off how important it is to, when you see that you have a trigger, don't just automatically use a trigger. Take a moment to think about, do I actually need this trigger? Is this card better suited for my hand? First thing I do on my turn is swing at my opponent's leader, which he counters out of with a killer, which is practically dead in this matchup. Then I play my 7-drop King, Dawn -2, and use my 1 Onigashima to recoup one of the Dawn, and I get rid of his Bonnie and his Raizo before passing turn. This has set my opponent so far back on his next turn, he clearly feels a little backed in a corner. And with 7 Dawn, he doesn't have anything better to do than to attach 4 to his leader and attack me twice using leader effect. The first time it happens, I end up taking the damage and get an Uta to my hand. Then he discards a You Can Be My Samurai so that he can swing another 9k at me. I have no choice but to take this damage again. Now this actually wasn't all that bad for him because it does put me on the back pedal for the rest of the game. He can choose to just do that every turn from now on. And doing so really means I need to keep up my defense or else I'm not going to last all that long in this game. So, on the crackback, I decide to start things off by using Onigashima and get 1 Dawn into play, just because it's a very easy thing to start my turn off. Having drawn 10-drop Kaido, I feel really confident if he decides he wants to start trying to play defensively, as long as I can stay at 2 life, because if I play 10-drop Kaido well at 1 life, he is likely just going to be able to kill me with his leader. I swing in with my leader, thinking he won't want to block because it will make it so I can kill this Law that he has on board. He does decide to block it, which is relatively free. So I make my King 8k in response and get rid of this pesky blocker so that I don't need to deal with it in the future. He does not have the ability to protect a 6k from an 8k swing. Afterwards, I just play down a Queen, Dawn -1. This way I can filter through my hand, get rid of some of this dead stuff, like my 2 Who's Who I really don't need. And you can see here I end up drawing a 7-drop King and an Onigashima. I don't really need either of those cards. So I dump the Onigashima, and I'm getting a little worried here, because if he just keeps going nothing but face, just doing absolutely nothing but attacking me straight on, I'm really going to be backpedaling for the rest of this game. Sure enough, my opponent picks up on this line of thought. As you can see here, the first thing he does is he attaches 4 to his leader, swinging at mine, undoubtedly with the intent to do it again. It isn't all 6, which is somewhat nice, but it doesn't really help me here because I have no counter power in hand. So I end up taking this first one, kind of to give him a little more incentive to do it again. And I get a Higurashi, which is a really fortunate grab for me because I need blockers in order to try and stabilize this game. He discards a very dead killer in order to swing 9k at me again. Now, it is way too risky against a kid deck to go to 0 with the amounts of ways they have to tap down a blocker and then double swing with leader. So I end up blocking this one and letting my queen very sadly die. I was kind of hoping I'd be able to keep it on board a little longer, but that just wasn't the case. On my next turn, I end up drawing a queen, which is extremely fortunate for me so I can keep playing blockers. Then I swing my Kaido into his kid. He winds up taking this, which doesn't surprise me all that much. And there are no triggers off of this attack. What honestly surprises me most about this attack is then I follow up by swinging with my 7k king, and he decides to counter out of this with an Izo and a killer. Now, obviously, going to 2 is kind of rough into a Kaido matchup, but he must have had at least one of those 2 cards from the first swing, and he would have only needed to counter 1 either way out of my Kaido leader swing. So I think it would have been a little more beneficial to block the Kaido attack instead of the king attack. Then I choose to play queen, drawing Thunder Bagua and a 9-drop Kaido. Thunder Bagua is a really good card for me to get right now. I need that defense. And I end up discarding my 10-drop Kaido because I'm not looking to board wipe away in this situation. Then I'm going to play the Higurashi in my hand, playing 2 blockers, ensuring that he's not getting me down too terribly low on the following turn. Afterwards, I pass to him. During my opponent's next turn, he decides to play 8-drop Kid, figuring that the swinging at leader isn't going to be able to get him through all the way since I've been efficiently playing blockers every turn. And I am still at 1 life, so he needs to tap down both of them to have a chance at killing me outright in a single turn. From here, he puts 1 Dawn onto his 8-drop Kid, thus to get its effect for the following turn, then uses its current effect in order to play an Izo from his hand, tapping down my Higurashi. Once my Higurashi is tapped, he does swing into it with his leader, trying to remove some blockers proactively. He attaches 1 Dawn, so I know that there's no Paradise Waterfall coming in the future. I decide to block with Queen and counter out with an Uda, because it's worth it to keep multiple blockers on board just to ensure that my board stays lively. Now, as I begin my following turn, I have an entirely new problem than what I've been dealing with, and that's an 8-drop Kid. Having said that, however, my opponent does not have any blockers, and with only 2 cards in hand, I know that he can't go all that high. He also just played a 2k counter, which means he's less likely to have a ton more in his hand. To play it completely safe, I attach 4 Dawn to my king, making him 11k, so unless both cards in his hand are 2k counters, that will kill his 8-drop Kid. Sure enough, it does. Afterwards, I decide to swing with my leader into his leader. No need for a Dawn commitment. I can use 4 Dawn from here to play an Uta, and then I'll have enough for a Bagua after all of that. With my leader swing, he does take the damage. It goes to his hand, so there's no trigger here. So I end up playing the Uta and passing to him, feeling pretty comfortable with this game at this point. On my opponent's following turn, he ends up playing an 8-drop Kid, but he doesn't attach 1 Dawn to it or use its effect. This is very clear to me, even in this moment, that this is to leave 2 Dawn up for a Punk Gibson, hoping that that will keep him alive. He then swings his leader into my leader, but with a completely free block for my queen, I'm not all that worried about it. And it's looking really good for me to be able to just close out the entire game this turn. I attach 7 to my leader, and then swing into him, pretty confident he won't be able to block out of that attack, and sure enough, he ends up taking this 12k hit with no triggers happening. Afterwards, I use my leader effect, Dawn -7, getting rid of the 7 Dawn that I just attached to my leader in order to get rid of his last life and try and close out this game. His last life ends up being a Paradise Waterfall, and then I decide before anything else to attack with my Uta. This is because if I don't attack with Uta now, he's going to end up using the Punk Gibson, which you see him use here, to tap it down so I have 1 less attacker to use. He does use the Punk Gibson to tap down my Higurashi, but that doesn't really matter to me as I'm certain I'm going to be winning here. I attach everything to my king, swing out at my opponent for 10k, and he is unable to defend himself from that attack. Today's video was sponsored by Top Deck TCG. This is an awesome website where not only can you buy singles for some of your favorite trading card games, but it acts as a hub for various content creators so you can stay up to date in those games. This is their homepage. As you can see, they currently carry Flesh and Blood, Digimon, Transformers, and Star Wars Destiny. They are going to be carrying One Piece in the winter when its official American release comes out. If you go over to game videos and podcasts, you can see some of your favorite content creators, including your favorite One Piece content creators, for all of these various games so that you can stay up to date on what is good right now. It's all very easy to use, and the guy is great. And if you use your promo code TheMoonmen, not case sensitive at all, you'll get 10% off any order you place. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. I certainly hope you did. You can find links to my Twitch and my Patreon in the description, as well as the promo code and the links to Top Deck TCG. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.